The morning the HOA fine arrived, I was sitting on my porch, sipping coffee and watching the fog roll off the trees at the edge of my property. Hunting season had just opened, and I'd spent the previous weekend in a tree stand, bow in hand, completely within the bounds of my property and the law. It was quiet, peaceful, until I opened the envelope. It was a letter from the West Ridge Homeowners Association. Inside was a notice of violation and a $1,000 fine for engaging in hunting activities that disrupt the character of the community. I read it twice, then a third time, expecting it to change. It didn't. They weren't accusing me of breaking the law, they were accusing me of breaking their rules. Rules, apparently, that now extended onto land they didn't even own. I had bought my property specifically because it sat on the edge of the HOA boundaries but wasn't governed by its restrictions. The previous owner had carved it out decades ago, and that legal separation was part of the reason I made the purchase. I liked my space. I liked my freedom. I didn't want lawn inspections, mailbox guidelines, or letters about my choice of holiday lights. And I definitely didn't want strangers telling me what I could or couldn't do in the woods behind my own house. But that didn't stop the HOA. They claimed that even though my property was technically outside their direct control, the sound and activity of hunting disrupted nearby residents. They cited visual disturbances and community discomfort as justification. One board member had apparently seen me in camo gear, and another had heard what they thought was a bowstring snap. It was absurd. I called the number on the letter and asked for clarification. I was told that the HOA had the right to protect the character and tranquility of the neighborhood and that complaints from residents had triggered the fine. When I pointed out that my land was privately owned and outside their jurisdiction, I was told, quite smugly, that they had legal advisors ready to discuss the matter further if I wished to challenge it. That's when something inside me shifted. I'd seen this kind of behavior before, power exerted not through law, but through intimidation and social control. I wasn't about to let them get away with it. They'd picked the wrong person to bully. Instead of arguing, I started researching. I spent the next week digging through public land records, HOA meeting minutes, and county plat maps. I discovered something curious. The most popular community hiking trail, one the HOA loved to advertise in its newsletters and Facebook posts, ran directly through a piece of undeveloped land adjacent to mine. And that parcel, it wasn't owned by the HOA. It was privately held by an out-of-town investor who, according to records, hadn't visited in years and had recently listed the property for sale. An idea sparked. While the HOA was busy trying to find me for doing nothing wrong, they hadn't noticed the weak point in their own kingdom. That trail, their precious Saturday morning bragging point, was hanging by a thread. And now, I had the opportunity to cut it, or better yet, own it. I contacted the landowner, made an offer slightly above asking, and within 10 days, I owned the very land the HOA relied on for its prized hiking trail. No press, no fanfare, just a quiet transaction with very loud consequences. The moment the deed was in my name, I ordered the signs: private property, no trespassing, trail closed. The signs went up on a Saturday morning, bold, red, and impossible to miss. Private property, no trespassing, trail closed. I posted them at every access point along the hiking trail, nailed them to trees, secured a few on wooden stakes. I made sure they were compliant with local ordinances and unmistakable in their message. The land was mine now, and that trail was officially off limits. By noon, the messages on the neighborhood Facebook page had already started. At first, it was confusion. Anyone know what's going on with the North Trail? Signs everywhere. Then came the disbelief. Wait, since when is it private land? That quickly morphed into outrage. This is our trail. Someone's making a huge mistake. I knew what was coming. I'd read the HOA playbook cover to cover, the passive-aggressive emails, the behind-the-scenes meetings, the escalating pressure tactics. I didn't have to wait long. By Monday morning, I had a letter in my mailbox. This one wasn't a fine. It was a formal inquiry from the HOA president, Linda Mayers, asking for a friendly meeting to discuss the recent signage changes. The tone was syrupy sweet but clearly masking irritation. I didn't respond. So, 2 days later, Linda came knocking. I saw her from the window, perfectly coiffed hair, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning everything like she was writing a mental report. I opened the door slowly, not because I was nervous, but because I wanted her to know that whatever power she thought she had, it didn't extend past my threshold. "Good morning," she chirped, though the corners of her mouth were tight. "I'm sure you know why I'm here." "I have a guess," I said. "Well, some of our residents have noticed the signs. The trail that runs through that land has been used by the community for years, and we just wanted to clarify whether there's been some sort of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I replied. "I bought the land. It's private property now." She blinked, momentarily thrown off. "I see. It's just, that trail has been a part of this community for decades. It's in all our neighborhood literature, even on the maps we give new homeowners. It's kind of a fixture. And none of that makes it yours," I said calmly. "It was never HOA property. It was privately owned. And now it's privately owned by me." Linda tried a different angle. "I'm sure there's a way we can work something out. Maybe allow limited access. We'd be willing to maintain it ourselves. We can even draw up a usage agreement." "I'm not interested," I said. "The trail's closed." Her mask slipped for a second. "You're doing this out of spite," she said, the friendliness gone. "No," I replied. "I'm doing this because the HOA fined me for legal activity on my own land. You came after me, remember?" She stood there in silence for a long moment, her jaw tight, her clipboard pressed to her chest. Then she turned and left without another word. By the end of the week, the neighborhood was in full meltdown mode. People were walking to the trailhead only to find fences and "no trespassing" signs. Some took photos, others posted angry rants online. One man even tried to tear down a sign, "Caught on my trail cam," which I forwarded to the sheriff's office along with a trespassing complaint. No charges were filed, but the message was clear. The HOA sent me another letter, this time invoking community values, and offering a small sum, $10,000, for a permanent public easement. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I decided to lean into the moment. I posted a photo on my personal page, me, standing next to one of the trail signs, coffee in hand, peaceful forest behind me. I didn't add a caption. I didn't need to. The message was obvious. I wasn't hiding. I was owning it. What followed was unexpected. While some neighbors called me petty or selfish, others quietly reached out to thank me. They shared their own stories of HOA overreach, fines for garden decorations, threats over fence colors, citations for parking in their own driveways. Turns out I wasn't the only one. Fed up with the board's power games. I was just the first one to hit them where it hurt. One neighbor, Ben, invited me over for a drink. He lived 2 streets down and had been on the receiving end of 3 HOA complaints in a year, one for having unsightly solar panels, another for leaving a ladder leaning against his garage for too long, and a third because his lawn gnome was deemed non-compliant with visual aesthetics. He laughed about it now, but you could hear the bitterness in his voice. "You're a legend right now," he said, handing me a beer. "You didn't just buy land. You bought their sense of control. They don't know what to do without it." I hadn't thought of it that way. But the more I watched the HOA scramble, the clearer it became. Their power didn't come from rules or law. It came from people's willingness to comply out of fear. I wasn't afraid, and now their carefully constructed illusion was starting to crack. Of course, they didn't give up. The board held an emergency session, and the next week, I got a visit from one of their lawyers. He came in a suit, clipboard in hand, trying to play good cop. Offered me $25,000 this time, a public plaque, even a thank you write-up in the newsletter if I reopened the trail on weekends. I listened to his pitch in silence, then handed him a simple, typed page with 3 lines. "Access denied. Trail permanently closed. This matter is not up for discussion." He didn't even argue. Just nodded, took the paper, and left. That was the turning point. The HOA had nothing left to bargain with. They couldn't sue me. I had the deed, the law, and every local ordinance on my side. They couldn't fine me. I wasn't under their jurisdiction. They couldn't shame me. I wasn't part of their clique to begin with. All they could do was watch as the trail, their symbol of community, their weekend pride, sat unused behind fences they couldn't cross. The emails stopped after that. The messages quieted. The HOA retreat was silent and slow, like a balloon losing air. The trail faded from the newsletter, the community maps were updated, and Linda's usual cheerful updates about nature walks were conspicuously absent. And I I kept living my life. Peacefully, legally, and with all the space I had fought for. What started as a $1,000 fine turned into something much bigger, not just a stand against the law, but a reminder to every neighbor watching: sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud or violent or angry. Sometimes, it's just buying the land under their feet and locking the gate behind you.